I like your boy, Edward.
Very interesting, dude.
And how about Joe?
Joe's fucking he's in Paris still.
Stuck.
He's making moves though.
Okay.
He's making moves. He's working on a few projects. He just did a soundtrack for a commercial.
Oh, okay.
That's good.
Yeah. Okay, should we do it?
Mm-hmm.
Bueno?
Wait. Okay, don't move. Okay.
Yeah, we're gonna have to. I'm gonna have to show you that video called Peak Oil. It's reminding me of this kind of effect I wanted, where the guy's just in his basement, just rolled an hour and a half documentary of nothing but him just sitting there in a fucking black and white. This is what the fuck it is, and this is what's going on. Okay, we live? Okay, so I guess first introductions, Pinkus. And this video is specifically to perspective to my daughters, and pretty much an overall aspect of me and how I got into Watts and doing what I'm doing. So I was born in 1964 in Huntington Beach, and grew up in that town and was overloaded in abundance. We had oil pumping from everywhere. We had food growing all over the place. And then, of course, we had the beach and the Pacific Ocean at our playtime anytime. So it couldn't be more abundant than what it was, but a gritty abundance. There wasn't hardly anything that was polished in that neighborhood at that point in time. So growing up in that thing, on a personal note, my dad left when I was 3, and I had a stepfather come in who was like Clint Eastwood on a bad day every day is my description of him. Very hard workaholic, hard person, and you know the town of Huntington Beach at that time was very blue collar, very working class. So once I started school, I then ended up finding myself in a strange situation. I don't know if it was somewhere between my dad leaving and the new father coming in, or just things that I was born little deficiencies. So I was put in special ed classes early on for reading, and in that process, I ended up not acknowledging the authority of the school system and created my own scale of what's good and what's wrong. And so at the age first, second grade, I started arguing with the teachers that the recess was the most important class, and that's where it was really at, and it's all I really cared about, and they can keep their school. And that was my first little resistance to authority and setting my own standards, and believing in more in what I was talking about than what people were trying to tell me about. And so as that moved through, they started to do development, which meant that we lost a lot of our places that we would play, and we didn't like that very much. So we would literally be harassing the people taking down our fields and our stuff that we'd play in, and we'd harass the construction development. And that was for 5 years or so. That was our entertainment after school, harassing development. And at the same time, my dad was a developer, and he actually designed the Little League park that was there before the suburbs started coming in. And so there was a sense of pride that, you know, I saw my dad design this baseball field that now all my friends played on and stuff. But because of the nature of that relationship, he was engaged with my stepbrothers and not with me. And so once again, I was like, had something but didn't have something, which ultimately now in my age, I know that these were liberations, that they weren't handicaps, you know, that I didn't have to buy into certain structures. So then the tourists started coming. And so through high school, it was harassing tourists because we didn't want the tourists to come and steal. And now these rich kids came in and moved in the suburbs, and they started talking about stuff that we didn't care about. And I literally saw my city transform into something that was an amazing place to grow up, gritty and real, and turn into something that was, now I can't even stand to be there. So to what it was. So to what I'm now in Watts doing, and how, say, gentrification is, it was gentrification that I witnessed as a young person. And then as my dad being in development, I saw the other side of it, and the money being made and all this stuff that happens from it too. So it's been a real, like, balancing act for me. So then I ended up going into the military to get away from my stepdad young. And that was pretty much a mistake, because the authority there was more than the authority than I'd ever had previously. So I immediately tried to get myself out of the military, got myself court-martialed, and instead of them kicking me out like they would have normally done and would have been expected to, because I was such a good worker, and the guy I was working for was a little like out of the norm on your normal chain of command. So he was a chief, an enlisted guy, but he had say-so like an officer. And so he stood up at the end of the court-martial and said, "No, you're not kicking him out. He's my best worker." And so they sent me to the brig instead, and then sent me back to work. And this created an interesting dichotomy for the next 3 years being in the military, because I basically wanted to get kicked out, couldn't get kicked out. And so then I would continually threaten authority with, "Well, if you don't like me, kick me out." And I would never do anything bad enough to get kicked out for, but I never gave respect to their authority. So I went 3 years in the military, failing all uniform inspections, not giving a crap about their chain of command, actually teasing officers that I was going to leave to make them nervous just for fun, just mess with authority. And it was the military. It's like one of the highest authorities, the United States military, and we were on an aircraft carrier. It's like, this thing right here's got some authority, and it didn't mean anything to me. And but the other side of the military is it has this operational system that I was just impressed with, and that they can take just about anybody of any shape or form, and they have an instruction manual to run that aircraft carrier. That whole aircraft carrier is ran under one big instruction manual. Nothing gets done without going to the instructions. And so I witnessed like the most amazing operational instruction manual known to mankind on that aircraft carrier. So that was a piece that I took out of the military that has always like most impressed me, and to try to like it. And then if we think about the motivation and energy used in war in order to have things happen, including this instruction manual. This is the, okay, what if we were to take that same inspiration, motivation, and target it towards poverty and hunger, and then create an operation manual like them. So these are all real doable things. It's just used in the wrong way. So this was one of my first, like, to the possibilities of things. So once I left the military, I started doing some more searching, and I read Malcolm X, and by Alex Haley, and it basically, I would say it cracked my head open, but it basically proved everything that I already knew. So as I was going through school and saying recess was the most important thing, that book confirmed I was right. And I'm gonna let out a big secret, that the school is not based on your intelligence, and you're not rewarded by your intelligence. School in America, I've got two French guys here, so I gotta make sure. School in America is based on obedience. And if you're obedient, they will reward you. And if you're not, they won't. And the whole school system is predicated on obedience. So when people get to positions of power, that they will be obedient to the other people in power to keep all the power structure in play. And this is the big lie that we're selling our kids and telling them they're getting an education. My kids are not getting an education from school. They know that they're under obedience training, and that they should be first obedient to me, and they should trust in me because I'm obedient to God. And so the whole school system and our whole structure based on this obedience, this lie needs to come clean. And we need to really talk about education instead of obedience. So, big point for me, right, moving forward. And then now, what they tell me I should do is I need a career, I need some goals, and after reading Malcolm X, I tried to understand where it is that he had his career decisions made from and what made his goals. And then before Malcolm X, I was a big Benjamin Franklin fan. One of Benjamin Franklin's first rules is use Jesus Christ as your example. So now Jesus Christ, what were his career plans and what were his goals? And then I love Gandhi and his, taking over a whole country, kicking them out peacefully. What were his career goals? What these men had not, they acted into what was in front of them to do. So I'm like, throw all this other stuff aside. I'm going to find my destiny. And I created a thing called Life Blossom that hopefully through all of this will manifest into an app that other people can use. But in this Life Blossom and finding balance and making a commitment to finding balance, I ended up making some decisions and going to work for my family. So I had more fulfillment for my work than just money. And in that, I took an aerospace company, which is tough because it was metal processing. So we're dealing with Hispanics, low income labor, dipping metal into acids and tanks to make military equipment. There's nothing about this that I was excited about except that it was my family's business. So we ended up turning that family business into an ESOP and an employee-owned business. And I ended up taking a mentality of authority over those individuals to inclusiveness, to where then they were able to know what a daily balance sheet looks like and what a monthly balance sheet looks like and be able to run their own business. And they've been running that business now for 20 plus years on their own. So this was my first idea that things can be different and that I can be involved with things being different. So from there, I've been out on what I see as now urban sustainability, but I saw is how to create independence in the cities. So in the urban sustainability part, I got a house in North Long Beach, and I put a garden in the back. And at that time, in case you guys didn't know, it's a blunt right there. So I've been smoking weed my whole adult life. This is another thing of, they can call it now self-medication, and I can get a prescription. And it is what I was doing as a young man, but nobody identified to it because it wasn't legitimate. So consequently, in order to get my weed, I would have to deal with illegal activities and would put me in a culture of people that understand how to run under the radar. Okay, sweetie, I'm trying to finish the interview, okay? All right. That's my daughter. She's trying to get a charger, you know what I mean? These are the priorities of life. You want to come say hi?
Okay, I don't have one. Go say hi.
Hi.
That's Emily, my daughter, looking for a battery charger. There's one. Oh, shoot.
For whose phone? Oh, for my phone.
Oh,
Keen has an iPhone.
you want to see if he's got a battery charger for you?
Oh, Angelica has an iPhone too. So either or, ask him. You must have them. Okay.
So then this urban sustainability, my house, and then having now, through using marijuana, connections to gang people. So in my house in Long Beach, when I put the garden in there, I started inviting my friends that were gang members over. And we'd watch Monday Night Football. And so I was like, okay, we're going to have some salad, make them dinner. And they all started making fun of me about the salad. And none of them wanted to eat the salad, calling it rabbit food and all this shit. But I still made the salad up, and they ended up tasting it, eating it. Within a couple weeks, they're wanting it. And so once I see they're wanting the salad, I'm like, well, then go pick it. And so, and then one of them goes and picks it and realizes it's kind of fun picking it. And now they're literally arguing on whose turn it is to go pick it. And at the same time I was doing this, I was dealing with these environmental type people that were into the urban sustainability. And they would all talk about atheism and that the big fairy tale and there's no God and all this stuff. And then they would get in the garden and turn into kids. And I'm like, there it is. God's touching you right now as you're touching God. But they didn't acknowledge God. And then I see the same experience with the gang members in the garden. They turning into little boys. This one time in particular, one of them went out to pick the salad, and he saw this spider out there. And then he ended up calling all the other guys. And I looked out in my backyard and saw 8 gang members bent over, staring at a spider. And it was like the most amazing thing. You know what I mean? This is, and I'm seeing these sophisticated, elitist, college degree people turn into kids in the garden. And so I know that this is where it's at. This gardening shit is a real connection to real life, and it's magic, and it's almost a forgotten thing. So this has been my inspiration. Now I went off and did some other things and some deeper learnings, and then ended up ended up here in Watts. Now when I say back here, it's because I guess I used to come here and buy bags of weed. So I'm back here in Watts, but I would have never thought I'd lived in this community. And then early on, I found out there's this big development going on. And they're going to be tearing down some projects and building some new projects. And it was like a rock throw away from where I was living. And there was a big community garden, and I watched them tear down the community garden, just a rock throw away from where I was living. And I got a baby on the way. I'm 50 years old. And mind you, when the whole deal with my family business had set me up with a trust, making me basically a millionaire, that I also lost when my mother died. So within a few months, I had lost $1 million trust and was pregnant with my first child at 50. Not me, but my baby mama. So, and with that, we ended up moving into Watts, and we had my daughter in Watts while all this was going on, this development stuff. So I ended up talking to my father, like I said, was a developer, and he retired being a developer and became a life coach. Specific on helping people have visions and bringing their visions into action. So he got hired, his first job as a life coach, got hired by Housing Authority to ask the Jordantown residents what they would like to see in a redevelopment. And so when I was telling my dad about this redevelopment, he's recalling the fact that he was hired as a life coach. And so by no plan, I literally was following in my father's footsteps. And we joked at that time, I was like, wow, it's like I'm fulfilling my destiny. And then that shit has gotten so much more serious from that point, to where now I don't look at that as some random, cute, funny thing. That everything that has happened to me, and the reason I'm here, is as a servant to God, because I surrendered a long time ago to this destiny to be able to be here. So this is what's critical for me and the understandings of my daughters, and why I am so committed into what I'm doing. It isn't what I'm doing in Watts, it's what I'm doing with my whole life, to be here, to follow my destiny. And in that place, you don't know and you can't plan on where it's going. And you have to be able to step blindly in faith, but also knowing that you're stepping in the right direction and that there's going to be something there to land on. So when my foot landed here in Watts, and then I started connecting with the community and started seeing I have a real position to play here, and I have something I can really do for this community. I am a white guy in a minority community, and white people come in and think they know how to tell a minority community what they should do. And I can't be one of those guys. In any other community function outside of this thing, I have no problem stepping up in front of it and telling people how full of shit they are and what they're doing. But here I couldn't. And I had to sit on it and learn, and how to understand how to be a part of it. And actually, to a point where I had to get in the suffering of having absolutely nothing to truly be able to understand, to be able to cooperate at a level that now I'm looking at them in the eyes, I'm not looking down at them whatsoever. And it ain't been fucking easy. And my girls are the ones that have paid the most. And they're the ones that are going to get paid the most from this. So it's It's important for me, for them to know in belief, and they know in belief anything is possible. And in spirit, we live from the void. We live, the spirit feeds from what it doesn't know. And the more that we accept that, and the more that we engage in that, the more fulfilled we will be. And my daughters are not going to wait to be 50 years old to be as fulfilled as I am in my destiny. They're going to know that early on. And there's a whole young generation right now that is not defined by the old standards. It is the opportunity and time for a real paradigm shift. And it is based on our kids already understanding that it isn't an I thing, it's a we thing, that it's a cooperative thing. They cooperate with their technology to teach them now how to maybe show us that we can all cooperate together. You know, America has sold competition and capitalism, and it when it runs out of resources, you know, I mean, America is a great country. Everyone, oh, America's such a great country. Well, check our resources. And all of our great times that we've had was based on the resources that this country had. And why the United States is lacking and struggling and is based on the resources. We don't have them anymore. And now we need to reevaluate our human beings and that resource. And then America can re-engage in what they do in showing the world on, like, how do you capitalize on resource? We need to end the game of competition. We need to engage in cooperation. And then we need to have the human being the resource now that America can harvest from. And so this is the end of my segment to my daughters. And peace out. How long was that?